Parcaut here with Brian Galke, and we're ACES53. If you know what that is ACES stand for attitude, commitment, enthusiasm, and smile. Everything you need in sales, and that 53 actually stands for the first joker in the deck of the cards, which is your unique ability that you bring to the table or something you can learn like Brian teaches. And unfortunately, Brian's been, or fortunately, or whatever you want to look at, he's been gone a lot because he's been teaching a lot. So
yes.
And he is actually a little under the weather today.
I am losing my voice. I don't know why.
It was his, birthday weekend last week, and some of us grew up and we have maybe a day if we even celebrate it anymore. But you have weekends still, huh?
Well, I went to an event in California, so it wasn't really a birthday celebration, but the timing of the mastermind was right. So I went, but I went from 70-degree weather in California to now it's in the 40s and 50s in Dallas, and hence I have no voice.
Well, I don't want to say I'll do all the talking, but we kind of wanted just to get on here because we weren't here last Thursday because our guest had a problem with their VA. So I guess if you have somebody handling your email, you might want to make sure they get on it faster, because something that takes a second to get back to or a few days, if they don't look at it because they're overseas and they don't look at it until 2 days later after the fact, or they took a 10 a.m. PST as I don't know what they took it as Eastern time or something,
Yeah.
You were talking about this where we all look at the time zone we're in only.
Right. Time zone narcissism is what I call it.
I put both.
Yeah. I put yours in just because I know, it's easier for you.
Oh, is that what it is?
You can't do the math.
That's correct. And you said you left 70-degree weather. That means you were in Southern California, not Northern California, because we've been in the 30s to 40s, just like you guys are. And it's raining. It's been raining since Sunday, and the problem with that is I can't get in the pool when it rains. Because I can't stand, you're already freezing, and then the wetness hitting your head is just, we'll move on. Yeah.
We when I left Dallas on Friday morning, it was raining. So when I was driving to the airport, it was cold, rainy, and I stopped to get in Starbucks. Was that? Yeah, on the way to the airport. And yeah, just when it hits your head and everything else, especially if you don't have hair, it's even worse.
Yeah, I know it was worse for us. I know. And my wife, I love the jacuzzi. I can't stand any water. If it's snow, that's one thing in the jacuzzi, but rain, no, that's a different world. All right, that's enough about our jacuzzi world.
Snow,
rain. Yeah, and our rain. But so a couple things I wanted to talk about is be careful of technology. What I mean by that is we do a lot of stuff as fast as it comes to us, and like I had there's this new software. I'm sorry, make it heard. No, I heard noise going. They're cleaning up all the leaves on the streets. I thought maybe music was going in the background.
Oh yeah, nope, can't hear anything.
It's just I know, but it was throwing me off.
Yeah.
So I have this API that goes in between my software for our processing system and the the different companies we use. And there's been an issue in the last multiple uploads. And I've just told my people, just go back to the old way, how we do it. Do it this way, upload and whatever. No problems at all. And I'm like, sometimes this new stuff isn't that great until they work out the kinks.
Correct. There was several things went down this weekend. MailChimp, that's what I use once people give me their email address and everything. It broke all my customer journey. So anybody who signed up for the cheat sheet in the last few days, it wasn't delivering them. And when I went to go get the online help, I said, hey, look, it says the journey's paused. It won't tell me why. I was person number 99 plus in the queue. So apparently they had some major issues today or last night. I don't know when it was.
I know another company that handles that. GHL?
Yeah, I know. You sent me Ralph's info. I need to call him.
It's just so much easier. I mean, I remember when we had Rob Allen on, and he was like, he sent his link for us to sign up. I was like, man, that's an amazing link to sign up. And he's like, it's just a landing page, and it's just this, it's just that. And now that I have them all set up, what a difference, and it's so much better. Plus, I don't have to pay $90 or $70 a year for each Calendly.
Well, MailChimp, now that I've gotten over 1,500 subscribers, whatever, it's like $80, $90 a month.
Yeah,
it doesn't do much more.
Oh, okay. Don't tell me. So if you have Cast Magic and you're paying a high number go in there and go to cancel. They'll take $100 off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right before you leave. So here's my note for you. So if you're on Cast Magic and you're paying whatever you're paying, just go in there and say you're going to cancel. And then they say, before you go, would you do it for this? Of course. So the $299 one went down to $149 for a year.
Interesting.
That's the cost per month for a full year.
Right.
Yeah.
I did go in this morning and Opus asked me if I wanted to upgrade to Pro, and I did. And it doubled my hours. Not quite. I think it almost did. I was at like 65 hours, and now it gave me 105 hours. So if you do that now, they're giving you 50% more hours, and it's free to do it. So if you haven't logged into Opus, I would do that today as well.
Yeah. Well, I went to do it, but I got to update my credit card. So I said, yeah, Pro. And they're like, your thing is expiring this month. We need to update it. Well, you know what? You can wait on that.
You will wait and you will like it.
I'll get there.
Excuse
me. You're just coughing too much. You're making me feel like I'm going to get sick.
I know. I already checked, no temperature or anything. So
I actually last weekend I wasn't feeling good for a day. The day that I was supposed to go see my whole family and everything.
It happens.
Yeah. But all right. So back to technology. Just be careful using too much of it. I mean, even I really liked Opus Pro, but now lately the clips aren't amazing like they were when I don't know if it's just they're so overwhelmed, if the AI is thinking differently, because I used to not put any what's the words I'm looking for? Not content,
captions. Have to adjust it.
No, not the caption part, but what you're looking for inside there, like interest rates or that kind of, when you're the keywords. Which I didn't in the beginning. And then I was like, I want this one part. So I did a couple words and it worked. If you're going to do it, just do the section that you want. Don't, that's what I'm going for. Because that's what if you go through any of their training, that's what they show to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had it where it's, I need to combine two of them and you can't do that still.
So there is it requires second party tools. That's where I still use CapCut. Because if I don't like the length that they chose, or it's something where it doesn't make sense the way they clipped it, I put it in CapCut for two reasons. One, so I can alter and edit the video, and also so I can add my own B-roll footage. So, if I pop up the picture of what my PowerPoint is or anything like that, if you've seen any of my videos, that's CapCut. So Opus does the captions, it misses a few words here and there. And then I just go into CapCut, download it, throw in the B-roll pictures I want to use, and go from there.
Yeah, well, I'd use it for B-roll on the, and it's usually the B-roll they choose. Is you can go in and edit it and change the B-roll that they choose from you. They're just sometimes I want to move it from where it is to a different spot.
Right. So what you could do is take a picture of their B-roll and then use a CapCut and just pop it in when you want.
Right, but then how do I get rid of it?
That's a good point.
Yeah, I'd have to no B-roll it and then do it again and then put it back in. So. Yeah. But that's not why we talk. We're talking about standing out. I guess this is rising above the noise and is standing out. And it's all the stuff we do. Most important thing is, get on podcasts. Get on other people's podcasts, have people on your podcast. If you don't have a podcast, start a podcast. You told me the other day that somebody was talking about my 1023 rule of podcasting.
Yes, he was talking about it.
Yeah. So my 1023 rule of podcasting is, which of course I made up, has to do with when I was researching for a talk at a thing I was going to talk at, it was on podcasting. I looked to see that most people quit before the 10th episode. So, I mean, it's like ridiculous, like 80%. And then another 10% quit right after that once they get right before the 23rd episode. If you get past the 23rd episode, you're really going to pretty much stay on and keep going. And because you found a way to make it cheaper to do the stuff. And you've worked out a whole system where you have VAs to help you. And once you can get there, my plan, I have a whole plan for January, what my thing's going forward, what I want to do. There's certain things I'm going to keep and certain things I'm going to have my VA do.
Gotcha. Well, I think to expand on what you're saying, take it one step further. Do anything to get in front of people. So is that
other people's podcasts?
Right. Attend events. So we mentioned I went to San Diego. I went to attend, and then the host said, "Do you want to speak for 5 minutes?" Absolutely. And our buddy Joe Ingram was there, And so Joe took pictures.
Yeah, but hold on, back up a second. This guy you've known for a while. Every time you show up his thing, he throws you in there. And I'm not knocking what you're doing, but not everybody's you, right?
Agreed.
So a lot of events you're going to go to, you're not going to get thrown up on stage unless you've been talking or you've been on stage before. You're saying go back to the stuff you've been at. And if you spoke at it, and then they might put you back on stage because they need somebody for 10 minutes, 20 minutes that they didn't plan.
Well, it goes
to fill in.
I was on a podcast, actually a Zoom on last Tuesday, and they asked like, how have you succeeded? And it was show up, number one, because you have to be seen. That's how you gain relationships, right? But then you have to show the person who's hosting the event that you're making progress. And especially if it's something that they taught you and you let them know. It's like meeting a movie star or a rock star. You don't just walk in and go, oh my God, you're amazing. That they hear that all the time. But if it's an actor or an actress and you say, my favorite character you've ever played was this person in that movie, you stand out differently. So if you're going to meet with people who host masterminds or events, you'd say, this piece of advice is what helped me, and this is what I've done with it. Because what they want to see is progress. Anybody who hosts events, goes to events, they talk about the people who they see over and over every time at these events who are great at taking notes, but not a effing thing has changed since they're there. And I used to be one of those. You know me, I'm a voracious note taker, but I wasn't changing anything in my life. And so my life didn't start changing till that started. But what I was doing is I was letting the people know, hey, thank you for teaching me this. This is how I use it. And this is how it's helped me.
So when I run into actors or actresses, I always say they're on my list that my wife. So I guess that didn't work. That doesn't work.
I was on the plane. There's actually a movie about that.
I don't have a list. I don't care about anybody other than my wife. So I don't want to hear any noise. Emails.
I'm sorry. I can't hear you over the sucking up sound. What was that?
No, I'm just serious. It's like, I don't have a list. I don't care. I grew up in, dirt road poor, but then when I was in San Diego and then I got into LA, you're around everybody. It's not a big deal. It's only if you've never been around and you walk by. So, hey, how's it going? You put your pants on the same way I do. They're just a lot more expensive.
a lot more expensive. Yes. God, this total side note. I was walking through, was it Neiman's or something? And it was $800 pair of shorts. Now, unless they're massaging something while I wear them, I'm not paying $800 for shorts.
No, that's a little too much. But somebody who's wearing those, that's a status thing for them, and they know, and people 100%. Know those are that's just like certain watches and certain things people wear.
Well, watches I get, cars I get. Not that I'd buy it, but I can understand because people do have a watch fetish, right? And they all know, oh, that's this one. It's worth X amount. People, you pull up a Lamborghini, Ferrari, something like that. People get that, but shorts. Unless somebody can see the label, I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, don't know. Don't care.
All right.
All right. So, all right. But you're right. Showing up is so important, how you did so much. And yes, the people we know that you've been going to, you have changed a lot. Right. I mean, huge. I mean, you were good the first time. And then you just got, I don't know if you just got nervous after you were on stage for so long. And then you're much better now.
It was a combination of imposter syndrome and employee mindset, because for my whole life, I just been told, okay, go present this product. But when I became the product, I thought, oh shit, do I deserve it? And it took time, and podcasts is what helped the most. Why? Because people ask you questions nonstop. And when you start doing it, you learn to perfect your message. So you and I've talked about this before. This was my mistake coming into it. I thought I had to have a fresh, brand new talk every single time I got up and talked. And what I learned is no different than an actor, no different than a comedian, no different than what we talked about before. People have sales scripts. Why? So you know the majority of what you're going to talk about, and then you can adjust on the fly and answer questions. The first time you saw me was the first time I ever talked where I didn't have a PowerPoint to cheat off of. That's another one, because then it's like, and then what happened is both Steve and Greg teach the memorize your first 90 seconds. And once you
they also talk about memorize 5 different ones to start with. Yeah.
Right. So Greg calls it memorizing song lists. And then you create an album when you're up on stage. So he has several different pieces and portions that he'll add in. So it's not rote memorization where people never have to see you again, but he has stories to select from and choose from.
I was redoing my podcast. So I'd use Podmatch a lot to get people for my podcast and to be on other people's podcasts. And I was going through the reviews that were on there and for people that I had, on my podcast. I'm trying to find it, but I can't find it. And one of them was like, it's like, flying first class for the first time. After that, you can't do anything. It was amazing what everybody said about how well I interviewed them and how I was on it and how I would go back and pick stuff and bring it back up so they could talk about it. And I'm like, isn't that how all interviews supposed to be? You listen to what people say. Because I remember one time I had a guy who goes, man, you actually listened to what I said. I'm like, you're supposed to. That's the whole purpose. And I guess a lot of people don't do that. So if you're going to podcast, you need to be on it. You need to make sure that you're really asking the people and really curious about the conversation. If it's a conversation you're not curious about, cancel the interview and just go on.
So this came up last week. It blows my mind that someone will ask to be on your podcast, but will never listen to an episode of your own podcast. Instead, what you should do is, just like you're going to research a client or anything else, go and listen to 3 or 4 things and go, hey, look, I noticed by watching these different podcasts, this is what you like. How do you want ours to be set up? So I'll do that. Like there was one I did the other day, and I watched 3 or 4 of his episodes. You don't have to watch all of them, if they're hour long or whatever. But I noticed nobody else really used presentations. And so I emailed them and I said, do you want this to be a conversation? Do you want this to be a presentation? Do you want it to be a combination of the two? I watched these other episodes. It's crazy to me that people won't research the people they're going to talk to when they're asking to be on their podcast.
Right.
Like I said, you don't have to memorize their entire history of it, but you should have an idea of whose podcast you're getting on.
And I did this for the longest time. I don't want to say I wrote a book, but I told them why I should be on their podcast. Like, right? No, short. Couple sentences. I want to be on your podcast. I think I could give some, check out my profile and let me know if I work for you. Just a quick 2 sentences, not very long. Don't do a book. They're not going to read it. And the other issue with, when I interviewed a guy on here, he was like shocked how well, again, that I did it. And he's like, well, a lot of times these people, I go, it's Podmatch. You're going to get 10% of the people who know what they're doing, just like 10% of the guests are going to be amazing. The other people are trying to be. And the one thing that you run into is I'm a coach, I'm a guru. I don't want you on my podcast. Right. Unless you've actually built a business, been through issues. I don't want you on my podcast. That's not for me.
Well, you're vetting your audience by who you bring in. You bring in crappy people, you lose people at the same time. And the reason people want to be on podcasts is to be exposed to your audience. So not only is it not going to help them, but it can hurt you at the same time. Now, there was one I did that they sent like 25 questions. They said, we're going to go over every one of these questions. So you need to be prepared to answer it. And I was like, okay. And I didn't read the list. And it wasn't to be rude, but if it's that manufactured, it's not going to be an authentic conversation. So, I went through them to know roughly what they were going to ask, but I didn't type out and memorize my answers because I want it to be off the cuff.
Yeah. And I don't ever ask people, here's these questions, answer them, because that's not what I want. I want to ask a few questions, understand the way your face is, right? I want to see when we're talking what lights up your face as we're talking and other things that you try to, and especially if you try to glass over something, I want to go back and dig into that to really piss you off. I remember the first time when I was first starting out, I had Rob Angel on, the Pictionary guy, and everybody wants to talk about Pictionary. I don't care about Pictionary, but we were kind of talking, and he talked about how he picked his partners and so we stayed on that the whole podcast because I thought it was very important how whether that's your forever partner or your work partner, all those things you needed. And it was an amazing episode because of that. And I didn't talk anything about Pictionary.
Yeah.
I think I brought it up one time and that was it. And that's the thing is you want to talk about it. It's like when I had Brian Smith on from UGG. Now I'm dropping names. The UGG founder and how he went through. We stayed on how he lost the company and how he came back. Because I remember all that going on in the early 90s. What he was talking about. It was like, I remember that. I was in it. I was living it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, so it's important.
Those are 2 great people to have on because, like you said, it's an interesting story. And, well, you mentioned this with your Inner Edison podcast. People
That's what I'm
don't
talking
want to
about.
get in, and say, this is where I failed. Everybody only wants to tell you why they're the best. Here's the crazy part. And somebody actually brought that up at the event that I went to in San Diego. They said, I realized when I shared my business failures, I got more attention. A post recently done about being fired a year ago got way more on LinkedIn than anything else I've ever posted. People want to know they're not alone. People want to know not everything is perfect, because they're so tired of manufactured what you see on social media is always perfect. And people know it's bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, nobody knew my story until I got on radio. Right. I was very private. First of all, I was the best kept secret in our neighborhood, and nobody knew my story.
Yeah.
And once I was on radio, they knew some of it, and then other times, and then my book had the other part of my story. And there's a lot of stuff and now everybody knows everything about me, and they understand. And it's that old statement that nobody cares how much you care until they know you, or what's that? I don't know this.
Nobody care. Was it?
Yeah,
Nobody
exactly.
know. Now you got me thinking about it. Basically, nobody cares unless they know you care.
Right.
About
exactly.
them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, you got to be more, if you want to be interesting, you have to be more interested in the other person. It's like that, basically.
Right. Well, it's that whole thing. It's like, when people treat people the way they want to be treated, because people say treat people the way that you want to be treated. And I'm like, no, it's treat people the way they want to be treated, because you never know what I want, how I want to be treated. Maybe somebody doesn't want to be treated that way.
All right, I'm trying to find the quote.
Anyway, it doesn't really
I
matter.
think I'm nuts. I'll find it later.
Well, later when you're not thinking about it.
That's right.
So the most important thing, and so today we're talking about podcasting and getting on them. A lot of people, I don't have time. You know what? Do a 5-minute podcast.
Exactly.
Just figure out most important thing that you want to. Well, who's your niche? What do they want to know? Just do a 5-10 minute, and you don't need a 30-minute, 20. I average 30 minutes, and then sometimes a little bit longer. But there's been amazing stuff done in 5 or 10 minutes. Because I was on one podcast once. The guy's like, "Okay," and we were done in 11 minutes. I was like, really? That I was on their podcast, and it was like, wow, that was fast, and I get it.
I found the quote. It's, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right. Something like that.
There you go.
That's it. Tattoo it on your forehead.
It's going to drive me nuts, so I want to go look it up.
All right. So we got holidays next week. We won't be here. We'll be back in January, but we'll be here on Thursday, and then we'll be back in January.
Correct. Yes. Hopefully I'll have my voice back by then.
Yeah, hopefully. And hopefully you'll reach out to the person that we're supposed to have on.
Oh, actually, that person that emailed me. If you don't, so wait, we'll talk offline.
Yeah. I'm just saying, do that, because we already said we wanted somebody closer to what we're talking about than that person.
Sure.
We had to. All right.
I will do that.
Female. Go for female.
I will. That's what I always do.
All right. What else I wanted to bring? So, I mean, the most important thing is you wanted to keep this short, and we're already at 23 minutes.
Right.
But again, today we're podcasting. Get on some other people's sandpits, grow your audience, but also find out really what you want to push. My big thing lately was for you to become the authority in your industry, kind of like we're talking about here. That was my big thing, because I didn't know that's what I was doing. When I got on radio, I just thought that was cool. Because not everybody can say they're on actual iHeart Radio, talk radio, KFIV, and people, how do you get on that? Well, I can teach a course on that. And then I turned that into a podcast, and I started 2 other podcasts, and then now 3 with, this one. And there's just a lot of stuff you need to do, but I would tell you, just get one podcast, focus on that, cut it up the way you need to cut it up, because there's so much you need to do, and you need help. You can't do it all.
Well, that's just, podcasts are a combination of get your own message out there, plus joint ventures, because you invite people on to help fuel your audience, but also bring you new followers, you name it. It's a win-win. But going back to what we talked about, everything is about consistency. You can't just go to one event and hope people know who you are. You have to keep going to multiple events. You have to post continuously. It doesn't matter if you're doing lives, if you're doing a reel, if you're doing a post, just consistency, so people see you, get to know you, like you, boost some of your stuff. You and I have talked about you boost more on TikTok. I've boosted more on Instagram. You just have to get your name out there, because we're all paying for marketing in some form or fashion. Either you're going to pay an advertising company, you're going to pay to boost stuff. You know, some people pay to have their book on the NASDAQ in New York City. It's just, how do you invest in your business to grow your business? And podcasts are a great way because it doesn't take money, it takes time. Now we mentioned some guy reached out, like, hey, I'd love to have you on my podcast at $6,000.
Yeah,
no, I'm good.
Yeah.
So
now Alex Hermosi, maybe.
Oh yeah, well, that'd be a whole other level.
Yeah, it just depends.
Yeah.
Happy holidays. Thanks for great videos. Thank you, Edward. Robert. Oh.
All right. Well, I'm losing my voice. So
all right, let's call it a day, and we'll be back on Thursday. We'll send Brian to get mended and drink some. Don't talk to anybody for the next 2 days.
I wish I could.
All right, make it a great day. Thanks for being here. I'm gonna go. You good?
Go. Do it.
All right, make it a great day. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate you. The best way you can support us is just go to our YouTube channel, ACES53, subscribe, and make it a great day. And we'll talk to you on Thursday. Thanks, Brian.